Hello, everybody. Welcome to DataChannel's third interview. I am very happy to have Mr. Hamish Watson joining me all the way from Christchurch. He's a speaker in past summit last year and several SQL Saturdays, and more than anything else, and my very good friend and a wonderful person to be along. So, hi Hamish, how are you?
G'day, mate. I'm very good, and thank you for the lovely introduction.
It's always a pleasure to meet you. The conversations with you. I can promise they are informative and certainly entertaining for sure. So that's one of the reasons why I really wanted you on the data channel. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing very good, thank you. It's been a nice day here. It's nice and sunny, being summer and all. So no, I'm doing well, mate. Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's great. Good to know. Good to know. So as you know, we'll be discussing DevOps today. So shall
yep,
we get started?
absolutely.
Great. So, what is DevOps? I'm a beginner in DevOps. What is it?
Cool. DevOps is basically a union of people, tools, process, and culture. And what it does is it brings those four things together to be able to deliver applications out to our end users or clients. One of the premises of DevOps is a lot of people like to argue about DevOps because
Okay.
they don't completely understand it, or they have their own view on it. And so for me, I decided when we were looking at implementing DevOps at my company was I looked at the continuous delivery aspect of DevOps, and that's around reliable, automated, and repeatable deployments of apps. Keywords there are reliable and automated. And we already had continuous integration, which is another part of a DevOps, and we had a testing department, so we had automated testing already there. But for us, the big game changer was around the continuous delivery of our applications, and sort of folding all that in, the continuous integration, automated testing, and continuous delivery, meant that our releases were a lot more stable, and the deployment was way more reliable, and by being automated meant that we actually had better work hours because we didn't have DBAs and we didn't have dev people getting up at 3 a.m. doing manual deploys. We're all asleep because the machines were doing all the work. So that's kind of what DevOps means for me. It's really a business process, because if we can deliver reliable software to our clients are going to love us. And that's important, because if they love us, they're going to pay us.
Absolutely. Interesting thing that you say is you're deploying continuously, you're making changes continuously, but still
Yes.
it is stable. So and it's automated. It's, to be honest, it's too good to be true. So, so can you clarify a bit more? How does it actually happen? Yeah.
One of the concepts, people think that DevOps will only work for companies like Google and Amazon, and all these unicorn type web app type companies. But and that's where I decided to break DevOps down into nice simple terms for operations and development. And one of the key things is I have a saying about failing lots. I want to fail lots. I want to fail lots in our development and our continuous integration environments. I want to celebrate lots in production. So all our failures, all the things that go wrong, happen really early in the deployment process. So our functional test environments or our QA environments, let's fail there. But as we move up into UAT or user acceptance environments, or pre-prod or staging environments, I want the failures to drop right off. And one of the things we had to do, and this is almost a cornerstone of DevOps, we standardized our setup. We standardized everything, and there was a lot of pain. It wasn't easy. It took us about 6 months to standardize our environment builds, our server builds, SQL Server installations and configurations. But once we did, all the environments through our deployment pipeline, right, from dev right up to prod, were similar.
Okay.
And so as we deploy the changes through, we almost know what will happen. And again, all the failure early on in the piece, we tear down and build our CI environments 10 times a day.
Okay.
Because we can. But when we get to prod, we have all the confidence that those small iterative changes are going to succeed. And that there's a key word there, small and iterative, because we used to do 3 months of deploys in one go in prod.
Oh, okay.
And it was horrible because that one thing that we weren't too sure might fail, funnily enough did fail, and then something else that we didn't know. And by doing small iterative changes, i.e. we might deploy to CI 10 times a day,
okay.
We might deploy to prod only once a week or once every 2 weeks as we go through the deployment pipeline. So things do go bump in the night, but they don't go bump in the night in prod. Okay. We've found out all the issues, and again, having prod-like environments along the way really helps. Yeah.
Okay. So the key change is standardizing and iterative deployments. That's good. That's good. Just out of curiosity, if we talk about iterative deployments, sometimes what do you do when you have a massive functional dependency where you cannot go piecemeal? How do you handle that scenario?
So we use Bitbucket, which is like Git. Do is we branch development streams, and there will be those big chunk of changes that will be branched off into another fork. And so we'll do all these changes, and we know that this one's here, but then it will be folded into our master branch at some stage. Okay. And again, it will go through the same changes. So if we've done 5 small changes here and this functional change, but again, through agile processes methodology, that big change shouldn't be it shouldn't be the biggest thing in the world. It should be still it should still be understood what effect it will have. And so we'll fold it in to the branch, the master branch, deploy that out to CI, our build functional test environments. And if nothing goes wrong there, it's probably going to work, as again we go up. So there is the allowance to have those big changes in there. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. As you brought out, what I'm pretty dumb in this topic. So I just want to ask, what is agile process methodology?
Oh,
just
mate. There's going to be a whole conversation. Look, for us, it was, we have Scrum Master, which is kind of like a referee in a boxing match, actually. That's the way I always think of it. And we had teams who have Scrum boards, and we measure the velocity of our sprints. So what we do is we have 2 to 3 week sprints for our development teams. And so by bringing that right down, it meant that, that big functional change that we talked about, it should not be as big as it used to be. It used to be a 3-month functional change, whereas we want to break that big functional one in, and if we can, chop it into smaller batch sizes, which is part of how Agile and DevOps sort of coexist. I always thought about Agile as being methodology and DevOps about being deployment. And I tell you what, there will be someone out there that will disagree with that. Sweet as, it works for me, and it works for our company.
Absolutely. So moving on, what kind of tools or what should DBAs be aware of when it comes to DevOps?
Okay, well, again, the DBAs, a lot of DevOps is, as I said, it's about tools, process, people, and culture. The tools work brilliantly, but the process fails because the people don't get the culture.
Okay.
So I can list all the tools that will make DevOps work in a company, and I can give those tools to DBAs. But the DBA has to actually understand where they fit in the culture, and that's where DevOps sort of people want to look at all the tools, but unfortunately, to make it work, you have to do culture. You have to look at the process, and your people have to understand it. And one of the things I did here at Jade Software was got everyone together, and we went through what DevOps could do for us, what the process might look like. And so I had an idea, the DBAs had an idea, and the devs had an idea, right? And we put that all together with a common goal. And our common goal was reliable and automated deployments. The developers had their own, they had to do stuff, right? So they had to standardize, but still innovate their application design and model and everything. The DBAs, they had to change some of what they had been doing, right? So they were used to manual deploys at 3 a.m. in the morning. They were quite happy not to have to do manual deploys at 3 a.m. in the morning. Key thing for DBAs, treat everything as code. I have this saying, everything should be scriptable. Version everything, automate everything, and use source control. Source control is massive. If you are not versioning things, if you're not using source control, things like SQL Server data tools and the use of DAC packs, right? Those are there to make your life easier and standardized.
Okay.
By automating and versioning everything, it's going to help DBAs a lot.
Absolutely. Okay.
So then we can automate.
What are the tools that you would recommend DBAs to be familiar for an organization taking DevOps?
Cool. Well, I sort of I come from two streams. I work for a software company, and I like open source. So there's a couple of ways, right? So companies like Redgate and Microsoft have some really good tools, right? So Redgate has Redgate SQL CI. They also have some really good source control tools. DBAs need to look at SQL Server data tools, which comes as part of Visual Studio and SQL tools. They need to understand Visual Studio Team Services, which is the online version of Team Foundation Server.
Okay.
Things like Team City, Jenkins, these are all build servers, and so they can build the code into packages that can then be deployed out through, say, like in terms of Microsoft products, Team Foundation Server. You can use that with release management to deploy out to your databases and your app servers. Or you might want to use something like Octopus Deploy. Octopus Deploy does one thing and one thing well. It deploys packages, but it still needs, like TFS or VSTS. So VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services, is the online version of TFS. I highly recommend people use that. I've installed and I administrate TFS, and it's one of those things, you've got to get to know it. It's kind of like a marriage. It's got its good points and bad points. Whereas VSTS means that people, using Azure is a game changer, and cloud services is. And so VSTS is the cloud version of TFS. It's up in Azure. And is really handy because you don't have to administrate the underlying server, no patching and all this type.
That's interesting. Yeah. Interesting that you have brought Azure into discussion. What kind of change does Azure bring into DevOps?
Okay. Azure is, I think I just said it was a game changer, and I stand by that comment. The reason I stand by it is because if I'm a DBA and I think, well, how's Azure SQL going to help me? because I'll drill down to the SQL part. So by using Azure, by using cloud services, it means that DBAs can use platform as a service, right? So you typically on-premises SQL Server, you've got to patch it, you've got to patch the Windows server underneath, you've got to configure it, you've got to do all these things. Whereas by using Azure, you can maybe have SQL Server on a VM up there, right? So infrastructure as a service. Or you may use Azure SQL database. And that means you don't have to patch your server, because Microsoft will do that for you. You don't have to patch SQL, because again, that's being done for you. And what it means is that you can do higher value things, right? So your DBA doesn't have to worry about those things. They can focus on far more important things, right? The cool thing about SQL up in Azure, SQL Server up in Azure, is that it's almost near complete compatibility, right? It's the same as what you'd be using on premises. And the management tools are the same as what you'd use on premises. The real kicker is that SQL Server 2016 was one of the most stable releases of SQL Server. Yep. The reason being is Microsoft is doing all the development, the prototyping, testing, everything cloud first, right? So up in Azure. And so they had pretty much production tested SQL Server 2016 a year before it was released, because it was all up in Azure. And so people could start seeing some of those changes and benefits. Funnily enough, Microsoft used DevOps principles in releasing SQL Server up in Azure. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So if Microsoft can adopt DevOps for releasing SQL Server, why not others? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, part of the thing with using Azure is that there's a lot of templates up there, right? And there's a cool community, the marketplace and all this that's up there means that you're not alone. There's all these things. You can orchestrate a lot of your database functions and everything using templates that are up in Azure. I mean, that's really brilliant. I stand by the word that it is a game changer. Yeah.
Okay, fine. And what are the other things that developers need to know for adapting DevOps practices? DBAs, you did clarify certain tools they need to be familiar. Developers, what are the things they need to know, and how do they need to change their culture or working style and so on?
One of the things I didn't mention about the DBAs, and I should have, and I'm going to mention it for the developers, and I'm going to be fair, both camps, right? So developers, DBAs, and operations people, if you call them that. Two key things, collaboration and communication, right? So both DBAs and developers need to talk more. DevOps is all about breaking down the barriers and silos between the two camps. And it's not two camps anymore, it's one camp, because we all have the same goal: reliable, automated delivery of stable software or apps. Right? So developers need to get on board with same deal, sort of, source control, versioning their code, treating everything as code, automating everything, and having standards. You can still be innovative and still have standards, and that's partly where CI and build environments come into play, because you want to just try everything in there, but within some boundaries, so that when it comes to deploy those through to production, we're deploying the same thing right the way through. And that was one of the things that we had to do. Was we had this great philosophy and process of developing reliable software. But then, let's say we were using Web API, but then we want to use MVC.
Okay.
What we had to do was not be complacent. We had to come together as a group and look at how to deploy an MVC app as the same way as we're doing, say, Web API. And even Node.js. So we were doing some Node.js stuff. Again, communication, collaboration. We made it go.
Okay.
When we had a situation where the developer went off on their own and was doing it over here, and when it got folded in, everything broke. And that was a good learning point for us, because it made us go back to first principles of communicating and collaborating. So developers need to do all the things I talked about for the DBA. They need to have that common goal and talk lots. I am an ops guy, right? Operations manager. And I set up a desk in the development team, and I used to sit there for a day, a week. And I'd sit there and I would go over all the projects and everything, because my view of the world is I'm going to deploy their app the best way I can. They want to develop the best app. So we meet together, and I used to go to stand-ups and listen and contribute, because we're a team. You know, we want to get that reliable app out there and make our app the best one and disrupt the whole marketplace, and people pass lots.
Absolutely. It's funny in how an attitude change can actually make so much of a difference, right, from anything and everything. So.
And one of the key things is talk to people. So I like talking.
Yeah, we know that.
I need to use my ears as well. And we had a very quiet person who was a brilliant developer, but they didn't have the confidence to, come out and talk. So I used to email them and just say, hey, what's your ideas on this, that, and the other? And so via email, and we actually, in the end, we used the Slack channel across the team. They came out of their shell, right?
Okay.
And so that's the other aspect. You have to respect people of where they come from, both inside and culturally as well, because not everyone likes to wave their arms around and be passionate about making stuff go. And say for management, you've got to describe it in terms for management. And the way I sold DevOps here at Jade to management was about lower total cost of ownership, i.e. we're going to use more of the cloud. We're not going to have all these things hosted on premises. But also, time and lieu went down dramatically because we didn't have people working on weekends and overnight. So we're not losing people and having to pay them to have time and lieu. Yeah.
Okay. And thanks, Hamish, for the inputs. I just wanted to ask you, how does Azure actually help developers in DevOps practices? Okay.
So Azure is about having a place where the common tools that developers use, like say Visual Studio and Team Foundation Server, well, those are all online, and so there's commonality. It's not having to relearn things or reinvent the wheel. And Azure has been built for application developers, and it allows them to focus on the app that they're developing. But one of the key things is there's built-in metrics in Azure, right? So this means that the application, by using some of the APIs within Azure, you can have built-in metrics. A developer can build up, tear down their resources as required. So that's where total cost of ownership comes in, right? So that's much lower, because if you don't need it to run on the weekend, turn it off. But if you want to spin it up, spin it up. Azure's really, really great, and it's been built for applications that need elastic scale. So today I need 2 of the apps running. I need to quickly make 10, spin up. And that's where Azure allows that elasticity of scale. And again, prototyping. We encourage developers to use cloud services to prototype things, right? So just spin something up, prototype it. It's either a winner or it's a failure. tear it down as we need. And so it allows our developers to be innovative. It allows them with productivity because we can rapid fire the design of an app. And we did that for a particular client. We threw something up really quickly. So it enables the business to, it's about rapid time to market for the apps.
Okay.
Best part, Azure has an SLA of 99.99% uptime. So, last, it opens our minds. And the way it opens our minds is we've got a gateway to Azure Data Lake. We've got a gateway to Power BI, machine learning, Event Hub, Internet of Things, all these wonderful things that are in the marketplace. And I really encourage people to look at Azure for prototyping, but also running business apps. It's a pretty good place to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. So basically, the time to release it to production and the time the effort involved in getting it on the production is much reduced, if I understand.
Yes,
that's correct.
Absolutely.
So just another question I had in my mind was regarding automated deployments. Okay, especially when you're doing it in Azure, so how do you actually manage it? Because you don't have a agent in Azure SQL database, so how do you manage it?
Okay, so we use some orchestration through templates, again, up in the Azure Marketplace. We also use DSC, Desired State Configuration, which enables us to, through the use of APIs, do some of the things that the agent used to, right? And I really encourage everyone to learn PowerShell, and especially Azure PowerShell. So you can download the SDK. And so a lot of our management is around template orchestration. We use PowerShell DSC. And also some of the things built into Azure. Yep, the agent's not there, but there are components within Azure that will do things like, say, they have advisors, right? So a database advisor, they do query store, query performance insight, and all these things are built into Azure. The reason they're built in there is so that all the management and performance metrics are done for you. It means that the developer can focus on what developers are good at. Applications, database optimization, right?
Okay.
So backups, right?
Okay.
Done for you.
Okay.
Disaster recovery,
okay.
Done for you.
Absolutely.
Geo-replication, done for you. And so it's a change in mindset. I hated SQL Azure when I first started because I'm an ops guy. I want to be in charge of everything, but I wasn't, and I felt my hands were tied. They were actually freer because it allowed me to do higher value things. I started looking at database optimizations because I now had time to do it. I wasn't looking at SQL Server agent jobs. That side is managed for you, and that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, before we wrap up, final question, like, do you have any interesting things to narrate in your company, any interesting scenario which happened when you are adapting DevOps?
Okay. I've got to make sure I don't say the client. we had a client who shall be called the client, who had they're a large utility company here in New Zealand, and they had an application that I liken it to kind of like an agile waterfall. So the waterfall model of deployment versus more agile type stuff. And so they were kind of agile in their development, but then when it came to actually deploying it out, not agile at all. And so what was happening was they would do their deploys at 6 a.m. in the morning, and they would have 4 hours outage, right? And so the developers there, the DBAs are there, they're all, 6 a.m. doing it. The problem was a lot of their deploys failed. So it was actually 2 hours of deploy and then 2 hours of rollback. And this particular client, we'd been working on a different project. None of our deploys were failing. So the client said to us, do you mind helping us? And we said, of course we will. And we wanted to, because it was actually affecting us, because our deploys would work, but the other parts that we interfaced were not working. So we took it over. It took us a month of sort of munging and getting stuff right. First thing we did was introduce a CI environment. They had no CI environment. Yeah, they had a couple of non-production environments, but they were different from production. It was completely different setup, this and the other. No standards. So that month, we took their development environment and we put it through our process. And, we variabilized everything, right? Mm-hmm. No manual configs. I like to think of configs, I call it the Willy Wonka. Not touched by human hands. All automated, right? So, and this was a change in mindset for the developers, but luckily they got on board mainly because they had two options. They either made the changes or I was going to keep talking. And it's amazing how many people will make changes rather than me just going on about automated deploys. We've been looking after the deployment of that product for 14 months now. We've had this many failures in prod. Zero, not one. We've had no rollbacks ever. Yes, things went wrong in CI, and yes, they went wrong in system integration test. That's why they're there. They're there to fail. Fail lots in CI. Celebrate lots in production.
Yeah.
That was having a beer, by the way. Yeah. Or a cup of tea, whatever.
Yeah, certainly more. Yeah. The weekends should not be for deployments. It should be for better things.
Yes, family and not working.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. And maybe a bit of rugby, watching a bit of rugby. But yeah, like, the more you can automate, the more you can test, right? So that's right. We introduced unit testing real early on in the piece. And again, I want to fail lots there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I want to find out all the things before we do that prod deploy. And prod-like environments. That doesn't mean that your CI environment is a 1 terabyte database. It might be a 50 meg database, but the whole structure of it is in version, right? It's in source control, rather. Yep. It's the same structure, same schema as prod. It's just very, very small. Prod can still be that 1 terabyte database. I haven't even talked about data warehouses and BI and DevOps. Yep. That's for another day.
Yes, sure. We would love to have you.
That's going to be a game changer. I'm trying to create a blog post about how DevOps and BI can work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We would love to have you for another round of interview on that topic as well. Yeah, that would be great.
I actually, I don't know if you do this, but I think it could be a co-interview. I've got a BIML hero here in Christchurch, a guy, Simon Peck, and Simon and I, actually you'll meet him when you're out here in Christchurch.
Yeah.
We have a few beers and we talk about using BIML in a DevOps pipeline for data warehousing. And I'm really looking forward to it actually, and using Azure for it too.
Sure. Certainly, that's BML, DevOps, Azure. Yeah, sounds a very, very interesting combo. Let's probably have a discussion on that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Be real happy to help out. Yeah.
Thanks. That's great, wonderful. So it was very, very nice talking to you. It was so much more enlightening, or so many new things I could learn. Personally, I could learn out of from your talk. Yeah, so nice to have you. So how was it for you?
Oh, mate, it was good. I always like talking to my sequel brother from another mother.
Absolutely. As
no, It was great, thanks. And look, I really, it was a pleasure, talking and hopefully helping someone watching this out there,
Absolutely.
That's always the aim,
Absolutely.
to help and inspire at least one person. So, no, it was a
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Absolutely. For viewers, Hamish will be speaking DevOps in Ignite Australia later this year in February. Probably one of the biggest conferences in data platform or in Microsoft technologies actually. So I'm very very proud that my brother, sequel brother, is actually speaking in Ignite. Yeah, if you're
Oh,
around in Australia, please do grab a ticket and get there. Sure, it will be informative. Also, he is also speaking in SQL Saturday Melbourne. So if you're in and around in this area, you can catch up as well. Yeah.
thanks,
Okay,
mate.
thanks a lot for joining, Hamish. Let's hope we have another interview soon. Thanks a lot again. Thank
All
you.
right, mate.
Thank
You
you.
take care.
Thanks.
See
Thanks.
ya.
See you.
Bye.